It's crazy, but it's
You're watching Channel Z, the world's leading zombie apocalypse channel, broadcasting live from Studio Z.
Makes me act the way I do.
Welcome to Undead Live. I'm Athena Actipus, and I am really happy that we are able to have an amazing guest on our show today. Mo Lotman, i.e. the Technoskeptic, is with us today. And also joining me is Dave Lundberg-Kenrick, the co-host of Undead Live.
Hello.
Hello.
You're very you're very blurry.
Yes. Yeah. Apologize for that. The zombies like to find everyone through facial recognition, so I got to be careful.
So is this a purposeful blurring of your?
This is a purposeful, blurring of my. Basically, I tend to cover my camera when not in use, and this is a little bit of residue left from that.
From like the tape, like you took the tape off.
Yeah, it's the duct tape residue. Yeah.
Mo, would you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name's Mo. I publish a magazine called The Technoskeptic, which was actually in print for a little while, and now we are online only, unfortunately. Hopefully back in print someday.
I have some old school copies here. Yeah, nice. I loved reading them. They're awesome.
Thank you.
So good.
That means a lot to me. So we take a critical look at the impact of technology on society, different authors, different writers, and trying to offer a different perspective.
And what's that perspective exactly?
I think it's a little countercultural, perhaps, but just against the idea of technology being a panacea to problems, and being interested in taking a critical look at different technologies and whether or not they're actually helping society, and what we should or should not consider adopting, and looking more holistically at the effects of technology rather than merely sort of the immediate personal benefit of it, but looking at them systemically.
So Mo, how did you get interested in these questions? And I mean, does this intersect with, your life and your story?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it was a personal journey, and probably like most labors of love, any kind of passionate interest that people follow. And for me, it started probably a couple of decades ago, really, with, it was one of the things was, and I've mentioned this on our website, is the mouse with the ear on its back. I don't know if you remember that. But,
tell us about that.
It's sometime in the 90s, and some biologists were kind of futzing around with various things, and they created this mouse that grew a human ear on its back, I guess, with the theory that it could replace a severed ear of someone eventually. I don't know what the idea was, proving a point, I guess. And I remember this came out, it was just like this photo in the newspaper, and it was actually a newspaper at the time, and it was just utterly, like, the disgust was just so immediate. And I had to work to keep my breakfast down, I think. So that was like a little pond ripple from that.
So then you were just like, goodbye, all technology.
Yeah, no, then it was like, I would say there were just like little things that kept happening. I think the cloning was also just starting, like Dolly the sheep. So when that happened, that's sort of, these were in quick succession. And I think I started having this moment of like, well, wait a sec. I mean, I love my, CD player, and I love my, ATMs, and, isn't it cool that, I can go to the movies and whatever. But I started seeing like this dark side, and I hadn't really ever saw it before. So it was really like, I had been pretty all in, just like almost everyone. So it was just kind of an awakening of this new way of looking at things that had not been there. And I think once I was allowing myself to do that, then I started seeing more and more things. And it was a very slow growth. It wasn't all at once. It took a very long time, but it was like peeling an onion,
So then what was that like over the last 2 decades, right? As all of this sort of unfolded and technology just accelerated and accelerated. And, every facet of our brains that was not already occupied got occupied by apps from our phones. And how did you navigate that?
Well, it was difficult. I think for a while I was just kind of, probably like most people, just kind of going along with whatever, what choice do you have kind of feeling, not feeling tremendously passionate about it yet. But when the Edward Snowden revelations came out, that's what really transformed my sort of unease into this sort of activism, like this next level. That transformed me from being sort of like, crazy kids, to wait a sec, this is a real problem for our society, and we need to do something.
Now, were there Snowden revelations about technology? I'm trying to remember, because I remember thinking of it as like political stuff.
Well, it was the eavesdropping, it was
sure.
It was the digital eavesdropping, the fact that, this kind of mass surveillance, which was impossible before, is now possible, and not only possible, but it's happening.
It's sure.
So it was a realization that the policy was being driven by technology, not by politics, and not by moral choices. That's what the Snowden revelations were to me. They revealed that the U.S. Constitution was sort of a fabrication, because it was supposed to be the supreme law of the land, but the Snowden revelations sort of revealed that no, actually, if there's a way to subvert the Constitution technologically, it will be done.
Sure. That's an interesting. Yeah.
Mo, so what is your daily life like? You're joining us right now over a live stream, but that's not something that you typically do, right?
I'm very uncomfortable.
So I think this is a thing that I think makes a lot of us uncomfortable, and even though I've sort of, as I was thinking about this, we were talking about the eavesdropping, it's a thing where I'm like, well, I've just sort of accepted it, right? Where I'm just like, I'm not happy about it, but I'm like, then again, I don't know, like I have you managed to find a way to sort of live in the world without this technology, or at least minimize it?
I think so. I don't feel like I'm done. You know what I mean? Like, to me, this is all like a big process, and I started one place and I'm in the middle of it, and I'm not all the way to where I'm going. So I'm definitely not a pure, I don't avoid all technology, as you can see. So I'm not all the way where I want to be, but I think that setting a whole bunch of boundaries has really helped me just say, no, I'm not allowing this to happen. I'm not allowing this incursion into my private space, my mental space, my, whatever it is. I refuse. And
Mo, we have a question from Erica O'Neill. She's asking specifically, what things have you opted out of, technologically speaking, and how is your day-to-day life different from people who are more plugged in?
Sure. I never got a cell phone. That's probably the most overt difference I have with most people. I just never got one. So I never had to give it up, which I think is one thing that people who think about it have a tough time imagining, because they're imagining giving something up. I never gave anything up because I never had one. But I do feel very grateful for that choice, because I see how it's impacted everyone's relationships and really colonized, it colonizes your brain. And I guess that's your sort of the point of your show. So that doesn't affect my life negatively at all. I think a lot of people assume that it would, but I don't see it that way. I see it as a positive. I value my personal time, my personal space, and that doesn't mean I don't have lots of friends. I do, and I'd rather connect with them on my own terms and in person, and I still use a telephone, a regular landline. So it's not like I don't talk to people.
Okay. Can I ask how? Oh.
Sorry, just want to jump in, Mo. So you and I were talking on the phone a couple of times. Was I leaving a message on an answering machine when I was trying to reach you?
It was voicemail. It was not
Okay,
a
all right,
old
okay.
reel-to-reel
It's not like an
answer.
old school thing with the buttons and a cassette tape, because
No, but
okay.
maybe I should do that.
So how have you handled quarantine given this,
Uh,
'cause-
well, I think quarantine sucks for everyone, doesn't it? I mean, it's
sure.
yeah, it sucks for everyone. I don't. I mean, in some ways, it's great because I don't mean quarantine is great. I just mean not being as connected is great, because I think the ways in which people are being sort of forced to use technology now because of the quarantine are too much even for them, and I've really heard of a lot of burnout because of that. And to me, that's not nourishing. That's not like enriching. I want to choose my interactions with people, and ideally in a way that it feels more natural and reciprocal. And I think having like a giant Zoom call with 12 people on it, I'm not sure what you're accomplishing during that, but I'm guessing not very much.
I have Zoom calls that have 80 people on them, like faculty
Wow.
meetings and stuff. Yeah, that's insane.
Well, but it also seems sort of inevitable. Like my kids, we just moved and I didn't have internet at first. I was like, maybe I won't get internet. But then the kids have to now do school through Zoom. And so it's almost
Yeah.
like I can't figure out how to unplug, and
Yeah.
so
So Dave,
Yeah.
you actually considering not getting internet?
I mean, I actually didn't have, like, over the summer,
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not going to have internet at home. I'm going to
That's
just
amazing.
have it. Yeah, it was nice because I was like, I'm going to come home and I was like learning to play the piano and stuff. And I read
Yeah.
like half a big book, which then I got internet and I never finished. And so, but yeah, I mean, it's a thing I would love to do, but it feels harder and harder,
And isn't that like the ultimate reason to do it?
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like you can sort of see the walls closing in, and I think in a way, it makes it almost more urgent that we stop the walls from closing in.
Hmm.
Right.
We've got a couple questions here. One from Charlotte, kind of along the lines of what we've been talking about. Basically with quarantine, has your outlook on our addictions to screens changed? Do you think that it's easier for people or harder for people now that our lives are much more constrained in terms of in-person interactions?
I mean, what I've seen just from personal anecdotal evidence talking to friends is that they're all really sick of Zoom calls and being on screens and conducting all their social interactions that way. And to me, this is actually awesome news, because I'm hoping that's what will happen. Everyone will get so sick of it that they'll just shut it off. And I think I was maybe saying earlier to you guys that it's it's like those smoking cessation techniques where you hear a buzzer and you have to smoke even though you don't want to, and then you start loathing smoking. And so that's kind of what I'm hoping for with screens, is that everyone will just get so sick of it that they'll just be like, screw this, I'm done, I'm out.
So Mo, we have another comment here. Somebody has
Okay.
a different view, who actually also happens to be my husband, it turns out. Carlos says that he finds connecting through video conference better than phone conference for work collaborations and family. So I guess here, it's kind of a contrast between just the audio versus having the
Sure.
audio and visual.
Yeah.
Do you have thoughts about that, Mo, in terms of...
First of all, I'm not going to, tell anyone what they should or should not like more or less. I mean, if that's the case, then that's the case. But all I would say is just that, I mean, conferencing either way sounds pretty bad compared to just being with people, doesn't it?
Yeah. So then what is, how do we be with people in this time then, if not through technology?
I mean, well, I'll just speak for myself. I've been meeting up with people in parks, and we go for walks outside and stand 6 feet away from each other. And I mean, I think a lot of people are doing stuff like that. I mean, because what choice do we have? I mean, I guess you could just stay shut up in your house all day, and some people are doing that, and some people have to do that, and I feel very bad for those people. But if you are able to get out, I certainly find it like very, very rewarding to be with people, even when you're 6 feet away. It's not ideal, obviously, but it seems better to me than being so isolated in a hermetically sealed electronic bubble.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
need it. We need those people. We need that touch. We can't really touch people, but we need to, especially now, because everyone's suffering. Everyone, even the people that aren't sick or aren't touched by people who are sick, are suffering because they're not getting that communal energy that they need. It's really depressing. I mean, in the literal sense.
Yeah. We have a related question here from Joe Alcock, also our Dr. Zed. He says that he was late to the cell phone party in the late 90s. And he remembers people being angry at him that he didn't have one. So he's asking, how does it affect your relationships, right? That you're opting out of a lot of technology that people often use to stay in touch with each other.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great question. It's so funny because isn't it funny how other people get angry at you about you? I mean, it's just, I had another friend who was saying that like he broke his screen and then people kept saying, why haven't you gotten a new phone? Like what's wrong with, like, your screen's broken. You know that, right? He's like, yeah, I know. Why aren't you getting a new? And he just remembered thinking like, why do you care if I got a new phone or not? It's my phone. Yeah. So, I mean, I've certainly had people be very confused by it. And I think early on, and I think this has changed over time, people were giving me more flack for it. But over time, that flack has changed and it's become more like, wow, okay, wow, good for you. I wish I could disconnect from my phone. And then I invariably say, well, you can. And then they say, well, no, I can't, blah, blah, blah. And there's reasons, there's always reasons. So I think, I don't feel my social life has suffered. I mean, if anything, there are people that they know my habits. And so when I'm out with them, they feel incredibly self-conscious about looking at their phone and interrupting our conversation in a way they would not feel self-conscious with someone else with a phone. And so I feel like they're more present with me because I'm always present with them.
That's an interesting change in sort of social norms, I think, because I remember when cell phones became popular, and if I would like go on a date with someone and they would check their phone, it was like, that's it.
You're done.
Yeah. And so, but now it's like the idea
they're
of
not checking their phone, and they must not be popular. So
seriously.
Right.
So yeah, that's it.
I mean, if they're not like, being pursued by someone on Tinder while you're on the date, then
exactly.
like, what's the point?
Right. Well, one thing I would say is that there's like, we have a lot of myths about technology. And I think we convince ourselves, especially like once we've sort of adapted to these new technologies that are of ease and convenience, that either because we've forgotten or because we never used them, that whatever older method is just so hard, it's so challenging, so difficult, and we can never imagine, and I think, and it's a lie, it's just a flat out lie. And I think giving yourself the opportunity to just experiment with that personally, like for me, it was with biking, like I've always had a bicycle, but I didn't really use it that much because I was convinced like, oh, I'm not going to bike all the way over there. It's too far. And, I'm just going to hop on the subway and I'm going to do this, or I'll ride, I'll ride with a friend or whatever. And I'm, a couple of years ago, moved a little bit further out where the subway didn't go. And suddenly it was like, well, how am I going to get there? I mean, there are buses, but I have to switch buses. It's kind of a pain. It's like, oh, I'm just going to ride my bike. And then slowly over time, it became like, oh, well, this is great. Like, first of all, I'm getting there faster, actually, than I would have on the subway. It's free. I'm getting exercise. I'm going exactly point to point where I want to go. It's awesome. And then I started going further and further. And like the trips that used to terrify me of being like, oh, I'm not going to bike 5 miles. Well, now I could bike 30 miles and it's not a big deal. You know what I mean? And once it's not a big deal, there's no reason not to do it. It's not suddenly like, it doesn't even seem appealing, to hop on the subway anymore, So I think once you like do these things, you realize, oh, there's this whole other world out here. And I've been convincing myself that it was like impossible, and it's not.
So Elizabeth Grumbach has a question. which I think ties right into this,
Okay.
which is, do you have any tips for how to balance my need to use tech to get news updates in the apocalypse with the desire to unplug? And so I think you were just talking about the bike metaphor, which I like a lot, but
Okay.
in terms of like concrete people who are saying, all right, now I'm looking to
Yeah,
find some middle ground, you know?
yeah. I mean, I think I, I would say get off social media first of all, but I mean, I don't. I mean, it's hard sometimes for people to do that, but I would say social media is a black hole of, you know, dumpster fire suckage.
Tell us how you really feel, Mo. You know, to hold
No, I
back.
mean, to be, without being super flip, I do think it's like not healthy, and I think that the only way to be on social media is to be on it. That's the whole point of it. It's designed for constant engagement. It's a flow, not a stack, as they say, right? So if you want to stop being reactive, then you want to cut off the thing that you're reacting to. And so I think social media, just to me, social media just needs to go. But as far as like checking things on, you know, if you have to get some news, you get the news. Like, you decide what news you want. You know, you decide, oh, now I would like the news, and then you decide you can go to whichever news, you know, site you think is reputable and go get your news, and then you turn it off. You don't wait for like people to be pinging you to tell you what to think about. You know, I think that's the problem with social media. It's not your choice. You're being reactive.
Have you been on social media in the past, Mo?
Ever? Yes, ever I have, yes, but not in years. I mean, I tried to do a Twitter account at one point for our magazine because one of my colleagues was like, you really should try it. You really should try it. You really should try it. So it's like, all right, fair enough, you know, I'll try it. And I tried it, and you know, very quickly it became clear to me that the only way to be successful on social media is to be on social media. You can't just like occasionally be on social media. It doesn't work that way. Especially not if you're like trying to promote something. You know, you have to like constantly be updating and refreshing and sending out tweets over and over and over again. And that means I would just be on it all day, which I didn't want to do.
So then, having a magazine, how do you promote that sort of without, you know?
Yeah, great question. Well, it's hard. I'm not going to lie. I mean, it's very hard. And I think one of the things that actually oddly worked well was the print magazine itself. I mean, it's so, and this is what, you know, it's like so counterintuitive, but we were online before the print magazine. And when we published the print magazine, we got a lot more attention because the print magazine was literally sitting somewhere in a store and people saw it and they picked it up, you know, and you can't really get that kind of serendipitous engagement online without resorting to kind of the same skill set of all of these, you know, trolls. And, you know, the people that are getting attention online are using the types of strategies that aren't the ones we want to promote in a healthy culture. I don't think, you know, it's all reactive. It's all about creating emotional reactions and generating these polarities, and that's what gets attention. So
Zombifying people, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we have a question from Neil Smith. He's asking, when all of the phones die, so when the zombie apocalypse does happen, how are you going to deal with all the attention deficit zombies who can't handle the lack of stimulation? So is there going to be less fear of missing out actually because everybody is missing out, or are people actually going to become so relaxed that they'll be dangerous?
I love this question. Will people become dangerously relaxed? This is an awesome question. Yeah, I hope people become dangerously relaxed. I hope they just droop into their lounge chairs and chill out and, you know, start singing songs to themselves and just, you know, have a beautiful buzz going and stop bothering other people. That would be wonderful. I do think, you know, I mean, in all seriousness, there's like an underlying question there, I guess, that's hinted at, which is scary, which is just that, you know, the people that aren't familiar with living life without these devices don't have the capacities to entertain themselves. There's no ability to be bored, and I think that is dangerous, because it's you know, if you can't really rest with yourself and be with yourself, you're gonna have a hard time being with other people, and you're certainly not going to have a great ability to make wise decisions if you can't reflect. And I think that's sort of the danger of this constant distraction.
And so, kind of to take this one step further, Mo, would you have advice for us, in the situation where all of the phones, do die, or we don't have, the ability to get online for other reasons, how should we deal with that? Should we panic, or should we do something else?
No, definitely don't panic. I mean, to me, that's like, whenever there's a thunderstorm and the electricity goes out, like everyone kind of likes it. I mean, they light candles, they play board games. They're like, oh, this is so nice, and then they come together as a family. And then as soon as the electricity goes back on, everyone just goes like skittering off to their own corners and like forgets every reason that was nice.
Just stop the game right in the middle.
Yeah,
doesn't matter. It's a tie. We're all done.
Yep. So. What's on Twitter? Yeah. So I think it's just recognizing that these things are actually they can be a blessing, and that, I mean, let's be honest. Like we lived for 99.99% of human history without any of this stuff, and we were fine. And so, and I mean, it's not even just, you don't have to go back to the Stone Age. You can go back to when I was a kid. I mean, it's not, I remember, it's not like I'm talking ancient history. I'm talking personal memories of life before these devices and before the internet, and it's fine. It's totally fine. So obviously it's not going to kill us.
Charlotte says she thinks that people are really craving these kinds of offline experiences where it's not about just reacting, and it, has this dimension of true authenticity. What are your thoughts on that, Mo?
I think that's true. I mean, I think people are hurting. I mean, people are hurting right now, especially now, obviously, because we're kind of stuck in this pandemic. But excuse me. I think it's just it's soul sucking ultimately. It's like we know it. Like plenty of people know this, right? They know it deep down. They love their technology. They say they love the technology, and I'm not denying that there's not appeal to it. Like it's it's cool. And there are fun things you can do. I mean, just like, watching Seinfeld was fun and eating donuts is fun, but you can't just build your life around that. You have to have some more richness and depth to your experiences than just that. And I think people know that. There's like somewhere in them, they know that. But I think the fact that they're having such a hard time giving it up anyway speaks to the addictive power of these devices.
Yeah, I mean,
people are.
There certainly is this, like, I mean, I notice it in myself. I try to really limit my screen use, but still, like, sometimes I'll be like, I just feel like a little jittery and I want to pick up my phone and like look if there's something on Twitter or Facebook, and just kind of becoming more aware that it is like this reaction to something. I mean, sometimes it's boredom, sometimes it's just like I want to be fed something, and I don't, and so I think, right, it's probably because the algorithms are conditioning me to feel that way. But it's kind of
That's
scary.
Addiction. I mean, you're describing it, right?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
So at some point also, if you wouldn't mind, because I know we're reaching the end, but I'd love to discuss, maybe if you'd be up for coming back, I'd love to discuss, you talked earlier about Edward Snowden and sort of how this spying has become sort of this constitutional loophole. And if we as a society are not able to completely abandon technology, I'd love to chat with you about some ways we could possibly sort of address some of these legal and privacy concerns, which I think are really legitimate and ever growing. So,
Yeah. Well, and kind of along these lines, let's take our final comment here from Joe again. He says, this is such a great conversation. It really resonates. But would he be exposed to it without the technology of this live stream where we're connected via social media? So, I guess there's this broader question, Mo, of, given how pervasive technology is, right? We're kind of in a situation where a lot of that ability to communicate even about the challenges associated with technology, that we use the channels of technology to communicate that, at least sometimes.
Well, I forget if it was I forget who said it, that maybe it was Malcolm X or something. You have to use the tools of prison to break out of prison. And I'm sure some of that will be necessary. I also feel like if Joe did hear about something like this from someone else and it was offline, we wouldn't know. And so, maybe there are people hearing about it and we just aren't knowing that they're hearing about it. And so it's like almost like it's this looking glass thing where we all, the fishbowl effect, where we all need to see what's happening.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, Mo, thank you so much for
Thank you so much.
joining us. It was a real pleasure to have you on, and I do hope we'll be able to have you back to tell us more about your technoskeptic perspective and help us all figure out how to deal with the zombie apocalypse that we're all in. So
I'll do my best.
all right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. This was great.
Thanks.